Good morning from Memphis. It's a little bit after 2 in the morning on June 21st, 2022. And this is the first day of summer, I believe. May have been the 20th. But be that as it may, I'm outside doing my nightly meditation. And I'm contemplating what's in the night sky. And the two objects that stand out the most are visible right in the middle of the screen, namely the moon and Jupiter. What struck me about this pairing, the moon is 2,160 miles in diameter, roughly 2,000. Jupiter is 88,000 plus miles in diameter. I think it's like 88,000. Several hundred, I don't know the exact number, but it's 88,000. So that's 44 times the diameter of the moon. So, if Jupiter were placed at the same distance that the moon is from Earth, namely 240,000 miles on average, Jupiter would be 44 times the diameter of the moon, and it would take up the angular diameter would be 44 times. The surface area would be whatever that's calculated to be. So there's a mathematical formula for the surface area relative to diameter. But be that as it may, that would just be a really cool sight. Of course, we would be unable to deal with the tidal forces or the radiation in Jupiter's magnetosphere. But nevertheless, that would be really cool to be able to see such a thing. We know that there are planets in other solar systems. Nearly all the stars have planets orbiting them. And we've discovered many Jupiter-like planets around other stars. Of course, Jupiter has 4 moons the size of ours or larger, but it's possible that in another solar system there could be a planet similar to Earth orbiting a giant planet, so it would actually be a moon. It could be orbiting a planet the size of Jupiter. And if it were at the right distance from the sun, it could very well support life, for all we know. So that would be really cool. But Jupiter is 318 times the mass of Earth. So if Earth weighed 1 pound, Jupiter would weigh 318 pounds. So we would have no problem. Jupiter would have no problem capturing us into an orbit. We would orbit the gas giant, no problem at all. The moon is 81 times less massive than the Earth. So if the moon weighed 1 pound, the Earth would weigh 81 pounds. So there's more of a mass differential between Jupiter and the Earth than there is between the Earth and the moon. And Jupiter is the 4th brightest object in the sky after the Sun, the Moon, and Venus. And if we were to orbit a planet such as Jupiter, we would be more than likely, well, we absolutely would be after a period of time, we would be tidally locked, meaning the same side would always be facing Jupiter, just as the same side of the moon is always facing Earth. So there would be a point on the Earth where Jupiter was always overhead, and many points on the opposite side of the globe where Jupiter was never visible, was always below the horizon, although there would be certain, there's a word for it, I'm trying to think of it, where there's a slight wobble. I'm trying to think of the word, but even the moon, there's a slight wobble in the moon's rotation where we so occasionally catch glimpses of the far side of the moon. And the same would be true if we were orbiting Jupiter. There'd be points near the horizon where the planet would rise and fall. Right now we've got a spacecraft orbiting Jupiter called the Juno, Juno probe, sending back amazing pictures and data. But be that as it may, I couldn't help but contemplate the idea of Jupiter replacing the moon in our sky and what that would look like. It would be amazing beyond description, but it would always be in the same place. So on the side where Jupiter is visible, it might, be halfway above the horizon like it is now, but it would stay there. It would move very, very little. We might be able to see other moons orbiting as well. They would come and go in our field of view, but Jupiter would stay in the same place because we'd be tidally locked, meaning that our rotation period would be the same as our orbital period. And our orbital period would basically be the same as our daytime, because the sun would come and go as we rotated, and it would also be eclipsed by mighty Jupiter once every day. So depending on our distance from Jupiter, our day would more than likely not be 24 hours. Could be longer, could be shorter, depending on our distance from Jupiter. But it would be cool to see a massive solar eclipse every day. Jupiter would hide the sun for several hours each day on the side facing Jupiter. On the other side, the side away from Jupiter, there would be a full day, and the sun would obviously never be eclipsed. Well, perhaps someday we'll get there. I thank you for watching.